What is up, guys? DT Ninja here to give you guys my RuroKen Hokkaido Arc Chapter 39 discussion. Okay, guys, as you guys remember my review, we talked all about the Aburo Nakoji incident and Hajime Saito. Now, the Aburo Nakoji incident is obviously between the Judo Abbey and the Shinsengumi, but only this chapter is in the perspective of Hajime Saito. So he is remembering a flashback of fighting the massive man, the samurai who is for the Judo Abbey, Hattori Sensei. He's huge. He's strong. He's got the dual wielding swords. So I mean, he's a very worthy opponent, formidable. So it's very interesting. And of course, we see how he takes on all the Shinsengumi, and it also shows Abe and the other member that we learn is a mysterious man that Nagakura met. We also get to meet an old friend of Nagakura's, Goro Maeno. We also see Abe and how bitter he has become. We learn more about his past and how he joined the Sekihotai, just like Sanosuke, but a division, obviously, a different unit, but still the same thing. So it's very interesting how we get these different, historical accounts, but also it shows their development of the characters. So very interesting stuff. So I have several discussion questions. Number one, why? Why did Hattori choose to fight the Shinsengumi all alone? Now, as you guys remember, Hattori is the giant, huge man. He's strong. He has dual wielding swords, and he fights the Shinsengumi alone. Why does he do this? Well, they're up against the wall. They're losing. They're fighting a losing battle. So he knows they're going to lose, and he's really the only one able to hold his own against them. So he figures, I'm going to fight to the very end, regardless. That is the way of samurai, to live and die by the sword. So he's very honorable. He says that, you guys, you don't want to waste your lives. Don't throw them away here. Live on in the new era. So he wants to preserve his comrades, which is very honorable. It shows his pride as a samurai. So very interesting stuff. That is my thinking. His pride as a samurai. Also his honor as a samurai. He follows the Bushido code. Very interesting stuff. And also he wanted to test his strength against the likes of Saito and Nagakura, because they were the best of the best. The Shinsengumi were known as the best group. So he wanted to test his strength against them. And who better to test against, right? Because he is one of the best. There's no doubt about it. Hattori is one of the best. He was an instructor of Gekken style, which is basically like this. It is like a sword, but not a sword. And it's practicing swordsmanship, but not an actual sword. So, but anyways, he was very skilled. He was very strong. He was very wise. You can see throughout the chapter, especially during the battles with Saito and Nagakura, how fast he picks up on their techniques. It's crazy. Kind of reminded me of when Kenshin fought Saito and also Shishio, how he's able to decipher their signature moves almost immediately. Remember how Saito uses Gatotsu over and over, and Kenshin explains to him, back in Kyoto, I had to have a technique where I could defeat my opponents in one blow, and sadly for you, Gatotsu was one of those techniques. And then he did it against Shishio, where he figured out the truth about the Homoradama, and even the Gurunkaina. So it's very interesting that Hattori has these very interesting, but also he's very smart. So I like his character. And he's very much a samurai, honorable, but also a badass. He has two swords, so that's really cool. That is my thinking. But what do you guys think? My next question, if Hadida, Sanosuke Hadida, by the way, this is the guy who shows up at the end of the fight where Hattori is distracted by Nagakura, who's trying to seal his, movements, Saito's there, also fighting at the same time. Hadida comes in from behind at the back of Hattori's neck with the spear and gets him. So he pretty much injures him pretty badly there. And then Saito and Nagakura simultaneously attack at the same time, multiple times. So this is how Hattori is defeated. But if Hadida had not been there at that moment, would Hattori have been successful? Would he have defeated Nagakura and Saito? And to that, I'm going to have to say probably yes, just because of his sheer size and power. He just showed how powerful he is. Not only that, his wisdom and how fast he picks up on moves is crazy. It's dangerous to fight against someone like this for a long period of time. So I feel like, yes, he probably would have defeated Saito and Nagakura, even though those two are considered the strongest of the Shinsengumi. So it's interesting. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Hattori is really above them in that level? Would he be like on Master Hiko's level? I think he would, because he's that strong, he's that big. You know, Hiko's a big guy too. So yeah, that's my feeling. Number 2, how did Hattori break the special sword of Nagakura's? We're talking about Sanrendosa. Okay, so this is Sanrendosa was in chapter 11, where Nagakura basically has a basic thrusting technique, and when he clashes with Hattori, he seals his opponent's center of gravity, so he cannot move. And what's interesting, like I said, Hattori is able to realize what's happening. He figures it out almost immediately. So, you're doing this to me. Interesting. And so, Nagakura is very, very confident. He's like, you may know what's going on, but you have not figured out the secret behind my technique. But suddenly, he's able to break free from it. And I'm like, whoa. Hattori just broke Sanrendosa. This is a technique that Nagakura said that he could slice someone in two. He literally said that, Sojiro, if you're not careful, I will slice you in half. It will crush you. So it's very interesting to think about, because like, wow. Like, how did he break it? You know, I'm going to say it has to be, one, his wisdom. He's able to figure out his intuition, like his battle intuition. He's able to figure out what's happening, one. Two, his size and strength is one of his greatest strengths, I feel. His size and strength is one of his, one of the things that makes him dangerous, because he's so big. He's hard to take down. He's hard to, kind of seal. And that's what Nagakura did. He sealed his movements, but he's able to push back and break free. But it was all a trap. Remember, it was all a trap, but at the same time, he did it. So that's just scary, right? That's just scary. And when you think about it, it's just how powerful he is. Because remember what Nagakura says. He says, I'm gonna break your second sword. He doesn't say the first sword or both swords. He says, I'm going to break your second sword, which means most likely one of the swords, either his left or right, is sealed. The other one might not have the same kind of power into it. In other words, he's able to move somewhat. So he wants to break one of the swords. So, because before he said he was going to slice him in half, and now he's saying break the sword. So basically what I'm thinking here is that it is a crushing ability. It can break through swords and things like that, and even opponents, but I think the fact that he has two swords actually affected the technique. Sanrendosa, it's a triple interlocking technique, but the fact that he had two swords doubled, the force, and maybe he's not strong, that technique is not strong enough to hold Hattori down. That's my feeling on that. So, but that's my feeling. Hattori is just a badass. Let's just be honest. He's just awesome. Yeah. Okay. Now, remember when Nagakura says that you have not seen through my technique, you have not seen the secret behind it. What is the secret of Sanrendosa? What is it? Does he send chi into the opponent's body, or is it to the sword itself? I have a feeling it has to be part of the sword, but when the sword is there, obviously it goes up the hand and through to the body. So I feel like whatever it is that Nagakura is doing, it occurs through the sword and it goes up the arms and to the body, and that's where the sealing occurs. That's how it happens. That's where the idea of his movements not, being sealed, where he's sealed and he can't move. But that's my thinking. I don't know. We really haven't seen the full power of Sanrendosa, right? It's been broken twice. One by Anji, and the second time by by the one who was sealed in the first place, Hattori, which was really shocking. Anji just happened to be, on the outside with two swords interlocking, so that was not the same. But anyways, that's my feeling on that. Okay, after the attack on Hattori, after he's attacked multiple times, he is dying, right? In his last moments, he is talking to Saito. He's able to talk to Saito, and he questions Saito's brand of justice. He says, Akzok-san, and then he says, the Bushido code, you do not follow this, right? But you follow Akzok-san. Was the Goryo Eiji truly evil? Was Sona-jo, the movement of the expelling the barbarians, allowing the barbarians, according to them, the barbarians, but we're talking about foreign influences, the outside world coming into Japan, not being isolated. Is that truly evil? Or is the people that you slayed with that sword truly evil? He starts to question Saito, kind of the way of thinking, how he carries out his assassinations and killings. So it's interesting to see him question that at the very end. And he even says, when you meet me again in hell, I want your answer. So why do you think he questioned him? I think one of the reasons is because of Saito's influence in the Shinsengumi. And we see this, that Heisuke, remember Heisuke, the best friend of Nagakura, remember at his deathbed, he also stated the corruption or the warped mind kind of thinking of the Shinsengumi, because all of these people that he respected and really cared for, they died. Because of the harshness, the strict code of the Shinsengumi. So he doesn't want Nagakura to go through that. And here you see Hattori's dying, and you see a young man, Hajime Saito, believes in this thing, and maybe it's that idea that he's very young, maybe he's been influenced by, this warped way of thinking that if this is different, then it's evil. That's not the right way. He believes it's the wrong way, and it's okay to have different thoughts, but maybe this way is a dangerous way to think, because this way can also lead to you having a very strict code, and that is kind of how Saito lives by. He lives by the Akzok-san, and he believes that if something is evil, they must be killed. They must be eliminated, instead of trying to understand them. And I think that Hattori is actually saying that if you could open your mind, maybe you could have understood us. You could have understood that the Goryo Eiji actually is trying to understand, the other side. We're trying to, we believe that maybe there's another way of doing it. The Shinsengumi was great. It was strong, but their way of thinking, their strict code, that is what caused the downfall of their own group, their own members. So maybe your way is closed-minded. It's wrong. So that's my thinking on it. And maybe this is why we see Saito kind of reminded of this, and even getting chills in the chapter. You see him getting chills down the spine, and he's like, man, what is that? Why do I feel so cold? and it's almost like he can feel like people watching him and targets and enemies all around him. And maybe it's the past that's really starting to haunt him, and those questions that, you know, Hattori was giving him are starting to come back to him. So that's my feeling. But yeah, that's an interesting thing to really think about. So number 4, why do you think that Saito imagined that the Batosai is still waiting on him to settle their score? Now, as he's waiting outside for Mishima to come back with a report, you see him get the chills down the spine, just like I told you. But at the same time, in his mind, he has imagined that the Batosai, he's thinking about the fact that the Batosai was waiting on him to fight. So he's reminded of that. And now he's starting to think, because of Hattori, of what he said, maybe there are others like Batosai that have the same feeling, that have the same grudge. Now, I'm not saying Batosai has that grudge anymore, but the others might. And we know there's others that have grudge against him. That scarred man, he wants him dead. So there is that doubt starting to creep in. So that is the reason I think that Saito kind of has this imagining of Batosai. It's not just because he thinking about the end and maybe he's not going to make it through this. It might be because there are others out there that have the same feeling as what Batosai was feeling, trying to end their conflict. It just shows how the past has really affected Saito, and it's interesting. It's very interesting. So that is at the very end of the Jinshu arc, right? Kenshin is outside his office and he's waiting for him to fight, but he never shows up, right? He never shows up. So that was something that he's reminded of. So anyways, interesting thing. Oh, and in the review, I mentioned how that scene is very similar to chapter 13. Chapter 13 is actually a different scene. I thought that scene actually mirrored that, which it kind of does, but that scene is actually at the end of the Jinshu arc, right when Kenshin is trying to settle the score. But anyways, I wanted to point that out. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing in this chapter. Okay, guys, the next one. How long do you think it's been since Washio Kano has met and spoken with Abe? We're talking about Judo Abbey. So in this chapter, we learn that Judo Abbey and Washio Kano have a long history. You see them in the past. In Saito's memory, we see them together. Washio's the one saying, "Come back, Abe. It's too late. You're gonna make Hattori's sacrifice in vain." He's there. He's right beside him. He's always been there. And that's another thing we learn. We learn that he's always been there. He's in the Seki Hotai with him. He's as a government official with him. And they're in the same, city. They're in Sapporo. How long do you think it's been since they've actually talked, since they've spoken? They were close comrades, but the way that Washio Kano comes across, his eyes, the way he shows the eyes, it's almost like the eyes are telling a sad story. It was almost like, my friend is gone. I want my friend back. And he's begging Nagakura, please protect my friend. Please protect him. I don't want anything to happen to him. So it's interesting, but it also opens up that question, are they on good terms anymore? And Abe really doesn't associate with him anymore. So I feel like maybe that goes back to the fact that he said he's a changed man, that he's bitter. And that goes back to the Aburo Nakoji incident where Hattori is killed and right in front of Abe's eyes. Just like Nagakura was affected by Heisuke, the same thing can be said by the Abe. Abe sees his mentor Hattori die right before him, and that drastically changed him. I feel like that changed him a lot. So, but it's interesting. They were close comrades, but I do feel like it's been a long time. Number 6, what group did Goro Maeno and Nagakura join in Tokyo? We know Goro Maeno is a former Shinsengumi member, and after being in the Shinsengumi, Nagakura goes to Tokyo, and he joins another group with Goro Maeno because he talks about how they were in some sort of, soldiers together. He says, I'm surprised you remember a soldier like me. So this means they were in some sort of group in Tokyo. I'm curious what that was. What kind of group together were they in, and what kind of significance does it have? I would be very interested to learn what that is, because those are both historical characters, and we know that Nagakura actually left Tokyo for Hokkaido because of some sort of grudge against Nagakura. So it's interesting if Goro Maeno and Nagakura were involved in some sort of group together, and it seems they were, but I'd be very interested to learn what that was. And they seem to enjoy each other, so they do have a history, so that was interesting. Okay, number 7, the very last question, guys. Why did Nagakura refuse to be with the beautiful geisha? So Goro Maeno owns this place with geisha. It's absolutely beautiful. It looks like a restaurant. It basically is a restaurant, but instead of calling it a restaurant, it's called a private meeting room. But if you say private meeting room, it's very strange. So I just called it a brothel because that's what it was called in the Edo period. And that's pretty much what it is. It's a brothel. It's a very lavish place. You have private rooms. You can eat and dine with geisha. You can have them for the night. So Goro Maeno is the owner of this, and he offers geisha to both of them. And obviously this was Washio's plan to have fun with Nagakura. Nagakura is very excited at first, but also he's acting very strangely. If you notice when he mentions them, he kind of has this look on his face like, kind of thinking back, reflecting almost. And then he refuses. He says, no, this is a business, this is a business thing. We're not going to do that. And then, of course, Goro offers him, next time you can come anytime, and I will prepare the girls for you, and you can choose which one you like. And you can see, just like how Washio Kano had the sad story in his eyes about his friend Abe, the same can be said about Nagakura Shinpachi. When you see his eyes, he's like, yeah, okay. But there's this sadness in his eyes, and you can just tell there's a story behind it. Here's the story. His first wife, Kotsune, was a geisha, and she was in Kyoto at the time. This was in 1867, at the time of the Aburo Nakoji incident, the same month as the Aburo Nakoji incident happened. They were already married. They had a child together. So Kotsune had a child, but after childbirth, she died. So he lost his first wife, a geisha, and that was after he lost his best friend, Heisuke. So, he lost his best friend and then his wife in a very short period of time. So, it's not just the geisha themselves. There's a very sad story there, but that's historical. That's the real story behind the reason why he's so sad, why he refuses them. I thought maybe it was because he's a loyal husband. Sugimura is, he's married to Kine now. Sugimura, I think she's a daughter of like a pharmacist or something like that. But anyways, it's because his first wife was a geisha. So very interesting, but also very sad. But anyways, guys, that is the chapter. There will be a review for chapter 40 coming probably in a week or so. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.